Calls aren't going through to the CRA, and the union workers say it's because the people who make the decisions are absolute morons. Or at least they would say that if they didn't adhere to the strictest of expectations around professionalism. But I don't work for the CRA anymore, so I'll say it. The people who make the decisions at the top of the CRA are absolutely clueless. What am I talking about? Well, the CBC is reporting that the CRA is only answering about 5% of incoming calls. I get more responses than that on Grindr. You're telling me that the CRA's call center is more picky than the average gay dude who's given up on love? Yeah. So what's the reason? Is it a buggy phone system or something like that? No. The problem is management, not the direct supervisors. If you have ever taken calls for a living, you'll know that most direct supervisors aren't total morons. They realize that the only way that they look good is if they don't cause the people who report directly to them to lose all hope and decide that working at McDonald's has more dignity. No, the problem is higher up than that. I don't know exactly how many levels higher, but I do know that there are a few major problems. Some people are making way more money than the people who they are fucking with, and they are delusional and keep thinking that if they try and force a paradigm that can't possibly work onto hard-working people whose parents didn't buy them horses for their birthdays, that it'll somehow just work. People who actually work for a living cannot work hard enough to make up for your incompetence. So my understanding, based on some digging, is that people taking calls have no max time for the calls. They're not supposed to just end the call after they fix one issue. So since there aren't enough people taking calls, the various accountants who call the CRA with questions end up having lists that go on for kilometers, and they can take multiple hours to sort through in just one call. And of course, the accountant is not going to hang up because, again, most of the time when they call, nobody is picking up. So when they get someone, they will hold on for dear life. And someone higher up thinks that it's a good idea to tell supervisors to threaten to fire their best employees because the people higher up made a bad system that the employee is just trying to struggle to do a good job in. Here's the thing, when you cut staffing on people who answer phone calls for important services, whether you're private or public sector, the work that you had them doing doesn't just go away. People don't call the CRA to tell them that they think they're nifty. They call because they have reasons to call. And if headquarters knows that last year there were X number of calls, they ought to know that there will be even more calls this year because people keep having babies and the government keeps approving people to move to the country. Also, the CRA's documentation tends to be absolutely terrible. I am so glad that I never have to hear another person tell me to read the Tom. That joke's gonna really land hard with like a few people. Second, the type of people who end up being put in charge of call centers, people get picked to run call centers not because they're the best and the brightest, but because they are terrible at telling dumb people who want to think they're smart that their ideas are insane. Here's what the yes men who get those kinds of positions won't tell you. The single biggest motivator for someone who takes calls for a living to work quickly and efficiently to finish a call is the idea that when they put themselves back into ready or available or whatever term you use, that the queue might be empty. If there is a chance that they get to sit there and just relax, they will work so much harder. Also, if a caller didn't have to wait for forever, they are much more willing to let go of the call without a fight if they believe they can get back in a timely manner. If you try and staff things so that there is never an empty queue, the queue will increase because what's the second best thing to no stress? A less stressful caller. If it's back to back to back to back constantly, eventually they will get a nice caller who doesn't scream at them and they will charm the pants off of that person. They will go the extra mile because they are exhausted, they feel terrible about themselves, and it's nice to just have someone who's not screaming at them. And that is not something to try and threaten them about. That is human behavior. You are working with humans. Deal with it and do your job better. Stop pretending they're not. Also, for every hour that someone has to wait on hold, they will scream once they actually get someone for at least 5 minutes. 2 hours? 10 minutes. It goes on and on. Trust me, I used to work at a call center that had a 4-hour wait period. When they finally got their act together and there was no queue, it was like a completely different job. The CRA is currently saving money by paying very few people to actually take calls about taxes, and they're paying more people to just get screamed at all day by people who have every right to be pissed off, but who have no access to the people who deserve to be screamed at. And the higher that you let the queues get, the more they are going to get screamed at. The more they'll be exhausted. The more that every call with someone who isn't screaming at them will take longer because they just don't want to get screamed at again. Because someone at headquarters doesn't know how to do their fucking job, but they make decisions that impact other people's lives and their mental health and physical health. I don't know which federal minister the CRA reports to. That would require me to do research and not just have opinions. But I would suggest that whoever they are, find out every person who in email chains has not repeatedly told their supervisors that the current staffing levels are immoral, and let them know that the Canadian government wishes them well as they pursue a career in the private sector.